Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a story that, well, it really gripped the world, didn't it?
Absolutely. The Amanda Knox case.
Exactly. For years, the headline seemed so clear, often sensationalized. But as we'll get into, the reality was far more complex, even shocking. Our source for this is Amanda Knox, The Untold Story, which really tries to peel back those layers.
And that's our mission here, right? To go beyond that sensationalism, look at the facts of this really high-profile legal battle.
Yeah.
We want to show you how evidence, perception, and frankly, personal biases all sort of tangled together.
How they shaped her fate.
Exactly. And how those factors can, deeply impact the search for justice. So get ready, because what you thought you knew might get challenged.
Okay, let's unpack this then. It starts grimly, November 2nd, 2007, Perugia, Italy.
A horrific discovery.
Meredith Kercher, Amanda's 21-year-old British roommate, found murdered in their apartment, partially clothed, deep cut to her throat. Just awful.
Truly awful. But what's striking, as the source points out, is how incredibly fast Amanda went from being a witness, someone grieving,
to the prime suspect.
Right. Astonishingly fast. And one of the first things that fueled this public demonization in the Italian press.
It was the kissing.
Yeah.
Between her and Raffaele Solicito.
Yeah, those kisses right after Meredith's body was found. The prosecutor, Giuliana Mignini, and a lot of the public saw it as callousness, disregard.
But her mother saw it differently.
Completely. Etta Mellis described it as just desperate, comforting, and consoling behavior. A young woman in shock,
Trying to process a nightmare.
Exactly. And that clash of interpretations, it shapes the whole early narrative.
It's strange how her wanting to help backfired, too. She stayed in Perugia, wanted to cooperate, even against advice to leave.
It's ironic, isn't it? She insisted on staying, but the media just ran wild.
Two beautiful women, suggestions of an orgy.
Sensationalism at its peak, creating these narratives. The she-devil, her slave.
And that video. The underwear shopping.
Oh, yeah. That was particularly bad. Circulated everywhere, this idea she was buying sexy underwear the day after the murder.
But all her clothes were locked at the crime scene.
Precisely. It shows how a narrative gets crafted, doesn't it? Not for truth, but for consumption.
And Prosecutor Mignini's mindset seems key here.
Absolutely central. The source describes him as a staunch Catholic with what it calls a medieval mindset, believing evil walks on this earth.
Seeing it everywhere.
Seemingly. He connected the murder to Halloween, witches' Sabbaths, theorized about a satanic killing, an orgy.
And Amanda fit into that as
a sinner, as evil. And this wasn't just some private thought. It really directed the investigation.
Turning it into something more like a moral crusade than objective justice.
That's a good way to put it, blurring those lines completely.
So, with that mindset leading the charge, let's talk about the interrogation.
Okay. It sounds brutal. The source details 50 hours. Over 4 days.
50 hours. And no lawyer present, none of it recorded.
Correct. And these interrogators weren't just, standard police. They were reportedly trained to break mafia suspects.
Yeah. And they're dealing with Amanda,
who's described as a little 20-year-old yoga hippie from Seattle. Completely out of her depth.
Unbelievable pressure.
Immense. Foreign country, foreign language. And under that pressure, she signs this so-called confession.
The one that placed her at the scene.
Yes, and implicated her boss, Patrick Lumumba, with that really bizarre line, "I confusedly remember that he killed her."
Confusedly remember. What's crucial, though, you said?
What's crucial, and often missed, is she never confessed to participating in the crime, only to being present. That distinction is vital.
And the police seemed eager to believe it. That text message.
Right. They misinterpreted a simple "see you later" text between Amanda and Patrick as confirming an appointment for that night.
Just grasping at straws to fit their theory?
Seems like it. And Amanda's own words, in that letter to Bob Graham, they paint a picture.
What did she say?
She described the police reaction when she named Patrick. They leapt up, hugged each other, cried, celebrating.
While she was?
She said she was so tired, couldn't think, just curled up into a ball and bawled my eyes out. Extreme psychological vulnerability.
That's where Professor Saul Cassin's analysis comes in, right?
Exactly. His report to the Italian court is invaluable. He's an expert on police interrogations.
And he explained how she reached a breaking point.
Yes. He pointed to the intense pressure, the language barrier, being deprived of food, water, bathroom breaks.
Being called a stupid liar.
While grieving and in shock. He argued that combination created, well, an environment ripe for a false confession.
She did take it back later, though.
She recanted, yes. But as the source says, the damage was done. That led directly to her arrest.
It really shows how vulnerable people can be in interrogations, doesn't it? Especially without proper safeguards.
A critical flaw. Sometimes getting a confession seems more important than finding the actual truth.
So with this confession, flawed as it was, they made the arrests. Amanda, Raphael, and Patrick Lumumba.
And what's truly astonishing, as the source highlights, the police chief declared case closed.
Before any forensic evidence was back.
Before a single piece, all based on McNeely's gut feeling, his drug-fueled orgy theory, with Amanda supposedly the ringleader.
It just shows how powerful a story can be, even without facts.
Absolutely. But then, slowly, facts started to emerge. Patrick Lumumba.
Released pretty quickly, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a rock-solid alibi. And the initial DNA findings.
Nothing connecting Amanda or Raphael to the room.
That's what the source says. Nothing in that room out of all those 400 samples that places Amanda or Raphael in that room. You can't just selectively clean your DNA.
That should have been a huge red flag.
For anyone looking objectively, yes, a huge red flag.
But then a new suspect did surface. Rudy Guade.
Right. Thanks to forensics. A bloody fingerprint at the scene. His footprint, his DNA, all pointing to Guade.
And he fled.
To Germany, yes. He later admitted being there, even claimed he was cradling Meredith. But then...
He ran off with her money, went to a disco.
And disappeared to Germany, letting others potentially take the rap.
But even with all this evidence against Guade, McNeely stuck to his guns.
He clung to his conspiracy theory. He insisted Guade couldn't have acted alone. He needed accomplices.
To fit his original narrative.
Exactly. So the focus shifted again onto the physical evidence supposedly linking Amanda and Raphael.
The knife.
The kitchen knife from Raphael's apartment. The initial claim was tiny amounts of DNA. Amanda's on the handle, Meredith's on the blade.
And the bra clasp.
Found in Meredith's room, supposedly with Raphael's DNA, those two items became the absolute cornerstones for the prosecution, presented as solid proof.
So the trials began. Guade first.
Guade was tried separately in 2008, convicted of killing Meredith, sentenced to 30 years, later cut to 16.
And his story changed.
Under pressure, yes. Reportedly went from Amanda had nothing to do with it to claiming she was there and was the instigator.
Then Amanda and Raphael's trial started in January 2009.
And that negative media narrative just kept going, right? Fueled by McNeely's made-up fantasy story of this violent sex orgy.
Which was actually illustrated in a magazine.
Unbelievably, yes. A graphic illustration. The narrative was just running rampant, totally unchecked.
It's incredible how powerful that can be.
And damaging. When Amanda was convicted, the source says she just couldn't believe it. She thought the truth was enough.
She got 26 years, Raphael 25.
Yeah. And her prison experience sounds terrifying.
Fear of sexual assault.
Constant fear. And this disturbing incident with the high-ranking prison administrator.
The one fixated on sex.
Yes. Asking her invasive questions, even asking if I would like to do it with him.
Trying to get something to fit the sex-crazed she-devil narrative.
That's clearly how Amanda saw it. An attempt to support the prosecution's theory. Her lawyers complained, and she was, as the source puts it, beyond determined to not do that. Incredible strength.
So how did things finally start to turn around? The appeal.
The appeal was a major turning point, a real shift in attitude from the judiciary.
The new judge started differently.
Very differently. Opened with a clear, grounded statement. The only thing we know for certain is that Meredith Kercher is dead.
Setting a new tone.
Objective.
Exactly. And that led to independent experts reviewing the DNA evidence. And their findings were, well, shocking.
How so?
They found 54 mistakes in the gathering of the DNA in that room.
54? Wow. That's not just sloppy.
It's a systemic failure. It shows how easily evidence can be compromised if protocols aren't followed rigorously.
And the murder weapon, the knife.
Completely debunked. The experts confirmed Meredith's DNA was not on the blade.
Not on the blade, so the initial claim was wrong.
Entirely wrong. Amanda's DNA was on the handle, sure, but why?
Because she cooked there. Used the knife.
Exactly. She cooked in Raphael's house, used it to cut bread. Perfectly normal.
What about the bra clasp, the other key piece?
That fell apart too. It was collected 6 weeks after the murder.
Using dirty gloves, and then, get this, they placed the bra clasp back on the floor at the scene after collecting it.
You're kidding. Contamination central.
Completely compromised, scientifically worthless. The experts concluded zero evidence against Knox and zero evidence against Salcedo on these crucial items.
So the prosecution's main physical evidence just evaporated.
It wasn't just reinterpreted, it was demolished.
And there was no other link. Digital evidence.
None whatsoever. No texts, no emails, no calls connecting Amanda and Raffaele to Rudy Guade. Nothing.
And that witness, the homeless heroin addict?
His testimony was deemed so unreliable, inconsistent, the judge basically dismissed him, threw it out.
So McNeely's case is collapsing.
Systematically, under factual scrutiny. Yet, his reaction during the appeal.
Asking for life sentences. Even then.
Astonishingly, yes. Asking for longer sentences. It really fueled that feeling of, well, vendetta is an Italian word. A personal drive seemed to overshadow objective justice.
God, the emotional toll on Amanda during all this.
Must have been immense. Her friend said, it kind of hurts to hope. Imagine that. Hanging in the balance again.
Fearing a second conviction would just destroy her.
A very real terror. And then the closing arguments, McNeely still attacking, criticizing their behavior in court.
But Amanda gave a final speech.
A very impactful final speech, heartfelt. The source says it left 3 jurors in tears.
And then the verdict.
The verdict.
Yeah.
Convicted of slander against Patrick Lumumba, but time served. The murder convictions?
Overturned.
Entirely.
Overturned. The aftermath must have been intense.
Incredibly emotional. Amanda weeping openly. Raphael very calm, stoic. The Kercher family reacting with quiet dignity.
And the public in Perugia.
Disappointment. Which shows how deeply that initial flawed narrative had taken root.
That last trip back to prison. Sharing a car with Raphael.
Symbolic, wasn't it? A quiet shift from prisoner back to human being. She said goodbye to guards, even one who'd shown some kindness, putting money on her account.
A small touch of humanity.
Yeah. And looking forward, Amanda's talked about becoming an advocate.
For the wrongfully convicted.
Right. Sending a message that there still is a light at the end of the tunnel, turning her suffering into something positive.
But we absolutely have to remember Meredith Kercher through all this.
Always. Her family's pain is the constant tragic backdrop. As Amanda's father, Kurt Knox, acknowledged, Meredith still leaves quite a big hole, and the Kerchers endured the worst thing that a parent could ever experience.
That loss, that tragedy is the core.
And it brings us back to that hole the authorities dug.
How so?
They had Rudy Guade, they had strong evidence against him early on, but pride, vanity, whatever it was, as the source puts it, made them keep digging.
Trying to force him into this larger conspiracy narrative.
Instead of just following the facts where they led, they likely had the murderer but pursued this other story.
Leading to years of injustice for Knox and Salcedo.
And prolonging the agony for the Kerchers. It's a stark lesson in how institutional ego, maybe, and reluctance to admit mistakes can just derail justice completely.
So this whole case, as we've looked at it, it's such a powerful example, isn't it, of how it's not just about evidence.
Not at all. It's about beliefs, media stories, procedural flaws.
All impacting justice. We've really gone through the twists and turns here, from those initial headlines to the detailed debunking of the science.
It really forces you to question how we decide guilt and innocence.
Definitely.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. What does Amanda's story really teach us about how fallible human judgment can be? Both individual judgment and, the system's judgment.
And the power of a good story, even if it's wrong.
Exactly. The power of a compelling narrative. Think about how public perception, fueled by assumptions and media hype, can just turn a real person into a character.
A character in a distorted story.
Yeah. And the devastating, life-altering consequences when that story gets believed over the actual facts. Something to really mull over.